Books I read in 2015, doo-da, doo-da. Books I read in 2015, that's not the words. Let's start. Look at that. Lovely, simple. Julian Jaynes, The Origin of Consciousness in the Breakdown of the Bicameral Mind. Isn't that lovely? Why aren't all books like this? This is obviously not new. I ordered this on Amazon for like $5 and I accidentally got a first edition. Cool. This is about how we feel about how we think. Consciousness is how we think about things and how we consider decisions, or how we imagine we consider decisions. And his argument is that very recently, maybe 4,000, 3,000 years ago, everybody was schizophrenic, in the sense that everybody heard voices and just did stuff according to the voices they heard in their heads. And the voices they heard in their heads, of course, were the other part of their brain talking to them. Whereas now we consciously analyse our decisions. And whether or not we even do that is up for grabs. And one of the things he says in the book, which I never considered before, is that we don't really remember things. We construct memories in the present based on information we have. Like, the example he uses is, think about something simple you did yesterday. Like you drove to town, or you walked down the hall. Something very simple. Now get a picture of the memory you have of that, and more than likely, if you're like 90% of the people in the world, you will have a memory of that involves sitting behind yourself, maybe slightly above yourself, and watching yourself go along the hall, or watching yourself drive in the car. In the more extreme cases, people will have a memory of that involves standing on the side of the road, watching themselves whiff past in a car. Very rarely is your memory inside the back of your eyes, which is the only thing that actually happened to you. So you remember, in other words, your memory is something that didn't happen to you. It's you're watching something, you've reconstructed it based on information that you know. And we all do that. Which is why memory is probably the least accurate way to figure out what happened in the past. Ironically. First witness accounts, they even say that in courtrooms, that witness accounts conflict horribly all the time, because you reconstruct your memories and you think you're remembering, but you're not. And this book is about that. It's not about memory, it's about consciousness, how you think about things. And ancient peoples, apparently, according to him, didn't think about things at all. Stuff just sort of happened. In the same way as when you're driving a car, most of it's on autopilot. You don't think about it, it just sort of happens. Or when you're talking to somebody in a conversation, you don't think about your responses. You might imagine that you do, or look at yourself. The next time you talk to someone, the things just kind of pop out. If we did think about our responses, the conversation would be very staccato. We'd pause between each sentence. We don't, they just run on, and sometimes we interrupt each other because it's all automatic. Like that. And his argument is that our entire lives were like that. Not that much of a stretch. Maybe not. I don't know. It's a very interesting book. And it changed my thinking on a number of issues, which is probably good for any book. And he says himself, which is what I like about it, that he hasn't proven his thesis. And I like that. He says there's no way to prove it really without doing research on people who are 3,000 years old, so good luck with that. But he says he's come up with this theory which does fit all the information we have better than anything else. So it's very interesting and cheap, even though it's out of print. And the reason I got that book is because I bought this book earlier in the year, which is called Unthink by Chris Paley. Look at that cover. Isn't that great? Another one. Unthink, Chris Paley. Look at that. The reason I'm having trouble orienting it is because my preview screen is on a mirror image of reality. Like this is my other hand. Anyway, that's Unthink. And the central thesis of this book is that how we feel about consciousness, is incorrect. Now we, as humans, generally regard our consciousness as an analysis machine, meaning we think it's for considering options, arriving at decisions, and so on. And his argument is that that's not what consciousness is at all. It's just what it looks like. What consciousness actually is that it's a modeling mechanism for how other people are going to respond to us. Right? So it's just how we model other people's responses, and that's consciousness. And as a side effect, it just looks like we're thinking about things. So this is, even though this was published in 2014, okay, that's a recent book. Even though this was published in 2014, Julian Jaynes comes to a very similar conclusion. He feels that consciousness was invented in maybe 2500 BC, or consciousness was developed by human brains, specifically in response to other schizophrenic people who were responding just as certainly to the commands of their gods, but the commands were different. So there had to be some... either you kill them all, or you have to engage. And that engagement with other people, and I suppose the modelling of how other people are going to respond to things, is consciousness. And I like that. I like thinking about things, and I like thinking about things. Philosophy. This is a book by Mary Beard, and everything Mary Beard writes is amazing. Yes, of course. This is called Laughter in Ancient Rome, which is about laughter in ancient Rome. Again, look at that cover. Isn't that fantastic? Mary Beard, Laughter in Ancient Rome. I wonder what that's about. It's about laughter in ancient Rome. Not necessarily about jokes. There's lots of jokes in it, but it's about how people laughed and how the conclusions we can arrive at. I arrived at that conclusion. Yes, the conclusions we can arrive at based on the conclusions at which we can arrive based on the depictions of laughter in Roman texts in one Roman text and also other ones like that. That's how you handle plurals. That's how I handle plurals if I can't pronounce the word properly. Look, here is an octopus, and here are some more of that thing. It's inelegant, but it's better than making a complete fool of yourself. Nazis. Second only to sharks in things that will make you watch a television show on basic cable. This is a book I got in a second-hand bookstore in the Butterslip in Kilkenny called sorry about the orientation again, I'm doing everything backwards. That's how you live, Barry. Yes, it is. I live backwards. A Social History of the Third Reich. And it answers lots of questions I had about... I mean, it's fun watching arrows move around a map and, Poland's gone. What are we going to do? Oh no, the Sudetenland, right? That's all fun. And games. But I would like to know how people actually lived under that level of stupidity. And a system that was so politically self-abusive. You know? Let's take all the smartest people we have in our country, all the smart scientists that will eventually, work out rockets and so on, and kick them out of the country because they're Jewish. And no country's ever going to work like that. You don't take your smartest people and kick them out. Or you do, and that's what happens, you implode. Well, this is a book about the kind of things that normal people got up to in the Third Reich. People who may not have been overly committed to the Nazi thing, and people who are extremely committed to the Nazi thing. And it's very, very interesting. There's a whole chapter on jokes in the Third Reich. I don't know. Here we go. I will read out some of those in violation of the copyright. Well, let's see. This book was published in 1971. So, yeah, I guess it's still in copyright. Sent to Rome for delicate negotiations with the Holy See, Goering wires Hitler. Mission accomplished. Pope unfrocked. Tiara and pontifical vestments are perfect fit. Yeah. Having come across the ex-Kaiser's splendid collection of uniforms, Goering has himself rushed to the nearest hospital to have his left arm shortened surgically. I guess that's kind of funny. On his wedding day, Goering splits his trousers, through strength at the back or through joy in the front. Strength through joy, that's kind of funny, right? No? A little bit? Goebbels' children, invited in turn to tea at the houses of Goering, Ribbentrop and Robert Ley, return successively happier after each visit to rave about ever huger cream cakes and other good things. And then after a visit to Hitler, they come back quite dejected, having only been given malt coffee to drink and little cakes. They ask, "Daddy, isn't the Fuhrer in the party?" These are all context jokes. Just, they're funny. Ha ha ha, right? But this book is brilliant. It's really good and it's interesting if you're interested in how regular people find ways to live under ridiculous political systems. It's the same reason why I like Alexander Solzhenitsyn, who writes a lot of books about people in concentration camps and gulags, and he wrote a book called The First Circle about people in the Mavrino special prison in Moscow for like the clever people, right? The engineers and the smarties. And it's great. And this is great too. Now we have The Black Swan by Nassim Nicholas Taleb. And this is the book that most caused my retakes of this video, because every time I try to explain it, it devolves into, this guy does things, and this book is about stuff, which doesn't tell you much. It's about predictions. In particular, it's about economic predictions. And I've written blog posts about this, which, before I read this book, by the way, I wrote blog posts about how economics is not really a science. It's more of a... I mean, science is supposed to make predictions, and then you can test whether or not your conclusions are correct. But economics, anytime they predict anything, it's wrong. It's just wrong. I mean, if economics could predict things, we wouldn't have these booms and busts. All they can do is analyse what happened afterwards. It's more of a forensic science than a predictive science. But unfortunately, economists believe themselves to be predictive scientists, and they're not. They get everything wrong. Everything. And then afterwards they say, oh, well, obviously this, because that. You say, well, where was that beforehand? You know? Like, I could have said that. And I don't have a degree in economics. So economics might not be real science, and everything they predict is wrong and might be useless. But it's certainly, as a forensic science, economics is very interesting. Just wish they stopped making predictions and expecting people to take them seriously. This book outlines why economics cannot be predicted. And also, given that you can't make predictions, and there's no... The black swan, of course, is the thing, the magic trick that you don't know about that's going to happen in the future. And he uses it as a metaphor because, let's say you have the idea that all swans are white. Then no matter how many white swans you come across, you haven't proven your thesis. Even though you think you have. With every white swan you come across, you think you're further proving your thesis, and you're not. You're just waiting for that black swan. And one day, of course, they found one somewhere in Australia, and that was the end of that theory. All swans are white was gone. Something that nobody could possibly have predicted. And something that... Really, this white swan theory had been, in the minds of the people, vindicated by all swans they've discovered being white. They just didn't see it coming. So, given that in economics is full, the world of economics is full of things that you don't see coming, how are you supposed to make decisions with your money? And that's what this book is about. It's about how to make decisions with your money, given that all economists' predictions are bullshit, or wrong, or based on stupid theories. He outlines all the stupid theories in here. Graphs, bell graphs, and all sorts of weird stuff. But, there it is, just a random page. That is the central thesis of the book. You just can't predict. As in every other field, you can't predict the future. Nobody can predict the future. But usually, like if you're going to be a science, what you'll do is you'll make a model. Like the sun goes around the earth, so the sun will come up every morning. But the sun isn't going to come up every morning because that's the way it's always happened. That's not why it happens. That's just like the folk explanation for it. The reason it happens is because we understand the model of orbits and planets and so on, and we can reasonably extrapolate based on our models what's going to happen in the future. That's not so much a prediction as understanding how the model works. And apparently the economic models, either they don't understand how they work, or the understanding of the models seems to be... There seems to be no point of communication between that and the actual predictions, because the predictions are always wrong. He says, I mean, we all know the monkey trick. You get a monkey to pick a bunch of stocks, and you get a trained stockbroker You get a trained stockbroker to pick a bunch of stocks. It's going to be a coin flip as to who comes out the best. That's not good news for trained stockbrokers. It's just pure luck. And it's been demonstrated over and over again that success in stock markets is down to luck. There's no skill to it. Stockbrokers, I assume, will reject that interpretation, but then they do know better than monkeys in tests. Maybe I do know better than monkeys in other kinds of tests. That's it. That's my selection. That's obviously not all the books I've read. That's just some that I wanted to talk about. So I've spoken about them. So we're done. Have any questions or comments? Why would you have questions or comments about that? Why? I was going to say leave it in the comments section below. No. I only want to see vituperative abuse, streams of invective, bad language. Somebody has to mention Hillary Clinton at some point. That's how these things work. And hopefully there'll be some sort of sexually themed, aggressive, violent, threatening comments